I'm Brian Hayman.
I'm Brandon Branson.
And I'm Branson Cox.
And today we will be talking to you guys about our Wreck and Eco project that took place out at the Christmas tree tract on our ABAC school forest. After figuring out the exact location of this stand, our next move was to meet with our stakeholders, which were Mr. Kip Hall and Mr. Dan Lawson, and this was so that we could determine exactly what was needed or asked of our group for this project. Our group was also tasked with working alongside 3 other groups because there was such a heavy workload out at this site.
A little bit of stand history on the Christmas tree tract. It was obtained by ABAC 3 to 4 years prior to this project taking place, and over the decades has been neglected with fire, causing the increase of invasive species, and which could potentially lead to a fire escape or a wildfire if we're not burning on proper weather days. The hazardous fuels overall just decrease the number of days that we'd have available to burn, which is important, fire safety when we have beginning students out there on the fire. Like I said, the non-native species just increase flammability overall, creating an unsafe work environment for those involved.
Stand use. The stand was previously owned and used for timber production, but from what we've understood, that this stand will be used now for wildlife educational purposes, where we can go out into the field into a wildlife educational atmosphere and area just to be able to apply hands-on techniques or any other kind of management stuff we need to know.
We had to follow a set of requirements for this project, and before we could pick up any tools and do any work, we had to ask our stakeholders 10 potential questions for issues or anything that might come up during our project. We asked questions such as what equipment would be needed if there was a budget, or if they had or knew of any issues that would arise. This gave us a great head start on what we needed to know, and as we went out there, each group member had to put in a minimum of 10 hours of work, and all of this work had to be completed by the due date September 27, 2021.
Christmas tree tract is located north of Willis Still Road in Chula, Georgia. And then the specifics of where we were working is on the northern end of the Christmas tree tract. Stand is about a central location, and then the site specifically we were working on within the stand is on the northern half of the stand where a drain lies. Most of the groups before us had already reached this location, doing some of the same work, allowing us to go ahead and move forward and increase the distance of the fire break.
We did use many different tools for this project, and as you can see here in this picture, it was very thick when we got out there, and our best friend became the brush cutter, which is essentially a weed eater with a saw blade for a head. And when using this type of equipment, we were required to wear PPE to keep us safe and the equipment operators safe. We also used things such as a bow saw or hatchet to cut down stems or stumps of these non-native or invasive species, and a spray bottle was required for herbicidal application to those areas.
Work objectives. So for this project, we were mainly out there to clear the fire breaks themselves, so that way they could be used safely by novice burners or people that are in a fire ecology class. Clearing the fire breaks, we were instructed to make them wide enough to where they could have both foot traffic and ATV traffic safely up and down them. We were removing stumps and stems throughout the whole fire break, anything in the road or anything that could have been or that could cause an issue or a tripping hazard. Also, while we were cutting the stumps to the ground, we cut them as low to the ground as possible so they would not be stabby or to pop any tires on the vehicles.
So some of the issues we encountered when we first arrived, there's a decent amount of time cutting and spraying stumps that have been left too high. There's a pile of brush left in the middle of some of the fire break that we just had to pick up and move over to the side, move out into the burn area so they could allow or become a fuel. And then some of the other spots on the fire break just had brush maybe too close to the edge that could possibly lead to a jump in the fire, so we had to remove them and place them further into the stand.
Why is fire break clearing important? Fire is a crucial part of the landscape around South Georgia specifically. without proper or safe fire break, it could put people who aren't as experienced or in a dangerous spot, or even allow a fire to jump the fire break itself and get into a spot that doesn't need to be burned or isn't ready to be burned. This also allows for vehicle travel around the stand to where you can get supplies needed, such as water or any kind of tools or anything that are real heavy that you don't need to, or you can't carry as far. You could go ahead and move them into wherever you need them at, so that way they would be easily accessible, and in the case that something bad were to happen, you could get it dealt with and handled a lot quicker.
So to give you an idea of what we were working with when we first got there, some of this has already actually been removed. But if you're thinking about, let's say we are burning a fire right in this area, and let's say it jumps, and most of the students are, maybe south of the fire, and now we're having to rush through and get a water tank and get over there and try to get this fire out, flappers, everything, used in fire equipment. That's not a safe travel corridor for anyone moving up and down the fire line. So what we did was come through, remove some of this brush, go to the next slide, and now you see how open it is. One, this is probably going to reduce the chance of a fire jumping. Two, if it does jump, we have a chance to get in there quickly and efficiently and put the fire out. Also, it allows, like Bryson was saying, if a student gets injured, snake bit, whatever, we can get an ATV to them and get them out of the stand and get them, where they need to be for health concerns quickly.
Another benefit to the stand being, or the fire breaks being cleared out like this, is beforehand for fire prep, it's a lot easier to rake this down to bare dirt and get all the loose duff material off the top down to where it also reduces the chance. But it's a lot easier to do it in these conditions than it would be to go through and try to rake trees out of the way.
So during our time out here clearing fire breaks, we were tasked with invasive species control. And the two main species we encountered were the red maple and Chinese privet. And if you don't know, these two species take over, and they take over very rapidly. So when we were out there, we had to cut them as low as we could to the ground so it's safe for students to walk or travel along this, and for vehicle traffic. And after we cut them, we would apply an herbicidal treatment to them, so that way we can reduce the chance of them resprouting or coming back. Like I mentioned, cut and spray. So during this time, we used a 50% triclopyr in solution with a blue dye. The blue dye is there so that way we know what we've already sprayed and we don't go back and waste equipment. And I will say this, every time that we went out there, we would see the stumps that either weren't sprayed or we already sprayed or somebody could have missed, and we would make sure that we sprayed them to where it needed to be so that the chances of them coming back is a lot less.
Results overall, we were able to achieve our objectives in an efficient manner, creating a safe, workable fire break for students in the future. Bottom line is we took a hazardous environment and made it work safe for anyone in the future, to go out and apply hands-on techniques or anything, any type of management they may need or tool they may use in the future. And I believe we achieved that objective very much. There's still some work to be done. Finishing the fire break on a round, maybe that gets passed on to some more students, but I think in the future this stand is definitely in shape to be burned.